Can you hear that music? Dun, 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 dun. It's Beverly Hills Cop. Dun, 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 dun. Great song. Probably can't tell we've been going dun, dun, dun. So not all plants are created equally, in my opinion. Some give you beautiful joy and relaxation, while others, I swear, are out to plot against you. They feel like they're about to ruin your planty jungle dreams. So let's go through some plants today. We'll pick out which ones which are high maintenance, maybe even invasive to avoid, and let's look at some alternatives instead. I'm sure you've seen this in that video. You know how it goes, so let's get straight into it.
Okay, and so the first one we're going to start with, I can see it over here, I know where it is. It is the tree that's been shaken more times than a maraca on social media. It is the Fiddle Leaf Fig. Okay, now look, I know everybody loves this plant, it's stunning, I get it, and if you can nail the care routine, it is a showstopper, you know, no doubt about that. It's very tall, it can be a huge statement if you grow it right, but that's the hard part, is growing it right. This plant is super fussy. When you have it at home, it hates being moved, it hates being rotated. You might even look at it the wrong way and feel like it's dropping leaves. It's that weird, it's that fussy. It does need a lot of bright light, consistent bright light. If the light is too low, you get a lot of leaves dropping, especially from the base, and then you get a really bare stem, which is hard. It's picky about watering. Give it too much, it'll get root rot. Too little, you'll get crispy leaves. And look, it is a bit of a dust magnet. So you just have to keep wiping the leaves, which isn't a problem so much, but the leaves themselves have quite a lot of ridges and it can just be a little annoying. So for me, this isn't really a good plant, especially if you're beginning or just starting out. Despite its Instagram appeal, I know you see it everywhere, it is just very high maintenance. If I was to go something different, I would honestly go for something like this one here next door. This is a bird of paradise. I'm sure you've seen this one around before as well. And this one can give a very similar big statement look. It's a very tropical plant. It just reminds me of holiday plants like palm trees and things. It's just beautiful. And the leaves can get really, really huge with the right light. Now, the reason why I like this one better than the fiddle leaf is it just tolerates a different range of light. It's not as fussy as the fiddle leaf fig. It definitely prefers brighter light but can handle moderate light. I have two outside. One in a very shady spot outside and one in like almost direct sun for at least half the day, and they both do very, very well. I find that the bird of paradise can handle some neglect. It can tolerate missed waterings here and there, and it'll just droop a little bit. So when it's drooping, give it a good water and it'll tell you. So unlike the fiddle leaf fig, if it doesn't get enough water, it can drop leaves. And look, the only other thing here, of course, is you do also have to dust the leaves, but these large leaves are smooth and just easy to clean. Grab those amazing microfiber gloves that I always talk about and give them a wipe. So it is beautiful. I honestly think a bird of paradise, it's just another better alternative, easier alternative that makes a big statement in your home. What else have we got? Okay, what's this one? This is a Dieffenbachia. Look, the leaves are pretty gorgeous. You can get them in a variety of different variegations and patterns on the leaves. But the one thing I think is bad about a Dieffenbachia is it is toxic to pets and to humans, actually. It's one of those plants that is quite toxic. I mean, there's plenty of plants out there that are toxic, but if you don't touch them or if you break them, they don't burn like this one does. So I have just stayed away from this one. I've got two dogs and my dogs don't touch my plants, but I still stay away from this one. So if you don't have pets, it's no problem. You can grab one of these. But to be honest, other things I don't like about it, it is prone to drooping and yellow leaves. It does need bright, indirect light to stay looking good. It can handle a lower light, I believe, but it's just better in bright, indirect light to make it stay beautiful and like looking lush, especially if it's variegated. If it doesn't get good lighting, it can get very leggy. It definitely loses lower leaves again. I don't know. There's just something about Dieffenbachia. No matter how beautiful they look in a greenhouse, they never look good in my house. What would I go for instead? I mean, it's right here on the table. It's a bit of a giveaway, but I'd have to say a peace lily is a great alternative. If you've seen a few of my videos before, I've talked it in this series. A peace lily is just beautiful. And if you're worried about just basic green leaves, don't. There's a lot more variegation and beautiful variegation in peace lilies these days. For me, a peace lily is just a lot easier than a Dieffenbachia. It is bright, beautiful, gives jungle vibes. This one here is just like this almost white, gorgeous colour. I really love this. I really do need to buy myself one of these again. You just need to watch when it needs a water. It'll droop a little bit and then water it again. But it can handle a lot of water. It can handle a little bit less water. Just a peace lily, I think, is really beautiful. It can handle lower light conditions, whereas Dieffenbachia can be a little bit fussy about its lighting. I think peace lilies are beautiful. I've done a whole video about looking after them. I think they're one of the most underrated plants. I've talked about them before, so I won't talk about them much. Beautiful. Oh, look at that one. Just beautiful, pretty leaves. And they can grow absolutely huge. Look at these flowers. Or they're called spathes, I believe. But this flower, oh my God, it's the size of my hand. Look at it. This is ridiculous. It's just beautiful. So peace lily over Dieffenbachia any day.
And what else have we got? Oh, minis. Look at the minis. Are these dwarfs? Minis. Mini dwarfs.
Okay, let's talk Calatheas. I know plenty of people on social media and YouTube have spoken about Calatheas, and while they are just absolutely gorgeous, I mean, the leaves are stunning every time I walk past them in the store. Like this one, you just look at them and go, oh, I would love that in my house. It just gives a different, unique vibe to the leaves and the patterns and everything. Oh, absolutely love them. Now, don't get me wrong, if you do want to go for a Calathea, go for it. You'll learn a lot through Calatheas. But you've got to get it really right. It's like the Goldilocks of plants. You've got to have the right water, not too much, not too little. You've got to have the right lighting, not too much, not too little. You've got to have the right soil mixture, not too damp, not too soggy. It's like you've got to get it right in the middle. But even if you look in stores, they are just really, really hard to keep looking good. They're really, really fussy. I mean, even in this store, you can see here is, I mean, it looks great in this big bunch, but you can see here, look, brown. It's just hard, really hard to look after. The good thing about it, it is pet friendly. You know, they're absolutely beautiful, but they're just very, very fussy. And they get spider mites very, very easily. I guess a few plants do, don't get me wrong, but they can get spider mites. And once you get a Calathea in a bad situation, once it's not happy, it's actually quite hard, or just takes a long, long, long time to get it back to being happy again. Better alternatives, I think. There's actually two very similar. One is a Stromanthe. This one here, as you can see, it actually is quite similar. It's just long, thin leaves. I have one of these at home in quite a dark spot, and you can see even here under the table, it's getting a little bit of a shade compared to the Calatheas up on top of the table. You can also get this Stromanthe triastar, which has this gorgeous variegation with these pinkish hues on the underneath of the leaf. Just stunning. But an even easier, slightly easier alternative is something called a Tenanthe. And I'll make sure the name is on the screen here because it starts with a C. It's a silent C, Tenanthes. But again, Tenanthes and Stromanthes to me are almost the opposite in terms of fussiness to Calatheas. So what I mean by that is they're less fussy about humidity, they don't crisp up as easily, they're less fussy about the watering, they can tolerate normal tap water, unlike they're less drought tolerant, they're okay with occasionally missing the watering. They do still prefer high humidity, don't get me wrong, they just are a little bit less fussy. Look, if you do want to go Calatheas, I'm not going to stop you because I have some and I do think they're beautiful, but if you can't get them right in a greenhouse, just don't beat yourself up if you can't get them right in your own home. So don't beat yourself up if Calatheas sometimes go a little bit odd. It just takes a while to get used to them.
Look at that Prince of Orange. That's nice. Beautiful orange. Or is that a sunset? What's that? Cardinal hybrid. That's interesting. Look at that orange. Oof, that is beautiful. Get away, phone tag.
Okay. Oh my gosh, look at these little bubbies. Oh my gosh. Okay, this here is an ivy. Now, I was hoping to find an ivy because ivies are the cutest little things. Like, this is so cute, and they do come with beautiful variegation. You can see here, but I can't see many big ones here, and I actually think that's a really good thing because ivies are, what are they? They're invasive. If you buy an ivy and you put it in the ground outside or you put it somewhere where it can just grow, it will grow really fast for you. And it's really, really hard to get rid of once you have grown it, once it's overgrown, once it's really found its happy spot. You know those big like fences and walls in like the English countryside that you see with the plant all over them? That's ivy. And then when you take that plant away, or if it starts dying off, you're left with this like this takeover of dry like vines and stems that just looks bare. It looks almost like a tree snail kind of thing has gone over the wall. It's hard to explain. I've got this weird thing in my head. Anyway, just ignore that. What would I go for instead of an ivy? That's a fairly easy swap. That you'd have to go for a pothos. So where are they? Look, this shop has so many different pothoses. For me, a pothos is nearly indestructible. This pothos, depending on the variety, of course, but a lot of pothoses. Is that the plural? Pothoses? Pothos? Whatever it is. Somebody tell me the plural of pothos. Anyway, they're nearly indestructible. They thrive on neglect. They can adapt to so many different conditions in your house: low light, high light, low, watering needs, higher watering needs. They are really just an easy beginner plant, and even for intermediate and experts, the trick to these is to try and grow the leaves really huge. I have a viewer out there who can grow really big leaves. I think he said it was like 25 centimetres wide. That is crazy. So even for more experienced plant people, we still love a pothos because there's still a challenge to them. They're fast growing, very easy to propagate. You can have them trailing or climbing. They come in different varieties. My favourite has to be the Mandula pothos, but I also love my neon pothos, my marble queen, even the golden pothos just grows beautifully. The only thing about a pothos, they are mildly toxic to pests, especially if you have cats that eat plants or dogs that chew up plants. They can cause a mild stomachache if they are ingested. But again, I have plenty of pothoses at home. My dogs just don't go near them, don't touch them. I mean, their tails like whack against the leaves and they break the leaves. Thank you very much. But they're just beautiful varieties and so much easier. So honestly, as much as an ivy might just look gorgeous, unless you want it taking over your house, just stay away and go for a pothos. So much easier. Oh, I think that's just a no-brainer. Pothos over ivy any day. Oh, look at this. Okay, let's talk string ofs. So look at this little baby. Ooh, and it's variegated as well. So string of pearls, it looks like little peas. I wonder why they didn't call them string of peas. I really like them, but in the most experienced growers find string of pearls actually really hard because they are just a fussy plant. I think the biggest issue is they're very sensitive to overwatering. If you do overwater it, it can rot very fast if the soil stays too wet. If it's underwatered, the pearls can shrivel up. I'll show you a B-roll of one I've got at home where I have had to catch the string of pearls shriveling up because I wasn't watering it enough and it was in a very bright spot. These guys do need direct light. They need direct sun. If not, they'll grow leggy and they're definitely not pet friendly. You don't want your cat or dog eating the little bally things. So just, if you do have a string of pearls, just keep them away. So instead of string of pearls, go for, look, there's one on the left here. It's cute. It's a little bit different. It's a better alternative. It can live indoors a lot easier. It can tolerate lower light if need to. I still think bright indirect light is best. And it can go weeks without water as well. This one is actually not toxic to pests. And again, it just looks quite, I think, unique and a little bit different. And again, oh, look, this one here. It's flowering. This Rhipsalis is flowering. Just beautiful. And for this one compared to, I've got a string of pearls that has had mealybugs, whereas I've found not really any issues with a Rhipsalis because you don't need to water them so they don't get fungus gnats. I don't find mealybugs on them. I mean, tell me out there if you've got a Rhipsalis and you've had pest issues with them, what pest goes on them. Please leave it in the comments below. Oh, let's go have a look at the succulents. Okay, so look, I think some people think succulents are quite easy because you just stick them out in the sun and you leave them. I've actually found succulents harder than that. I think the hardest thing about succulents is you think they just don't need any water, but they do. If you think about where cacti live, they are dry for a long time and then they get a huge drenching from the rains that come through. You can't overwater a succulent because they get root rot if you overwater a cacti or a succulent. Look at these. Aren't these just like movie material? Like, what is it about them? What are they? I can't think of the word. They're just unique and I can't think of the word for it, but just stunning. Now, if you are going to try a succulent for the very first time, go for a jade plant. This one here, this has taken years, like the one here is huge. And I have a huge whole video about how to look after jade plants. They are slow growers, just like cacti and other succulents are, but they're just a lot easier. They're a lot tolerant. They're so easy to propagate. You literally just snip it off and pop it into some soil and they'll propagate so easily. Like, I don't know, I just find jade plants are just beautiful. They do hold a lot of water, so you don't want to overwater them, but they tell you when they're happy by giving you this tiny little like reddish tinge or a little like reddish hue to the end of the leaf tips on most jade plants. But yeah, just beautiful. Jade plants over a succulent any day. Once you get used to that, then start going for your cacti and other different things. But you just need to get used to the right amount of watering, not too little and not too much. I was hoping we would get to this. Bromeliads for me is something that I would honestly avoid like the plague. I am sorry to anyone who loves their bromeliads, and I do see them more outside than inside. I don't really see these as an inside plant, to be honest. Bromeliads are just... I don't like them. I've never had one, I must admit, because here in Australia, there are mosquitoes everywhere. And the one thing for me I don't like about bromeliads is every time it rains or every time you water them, they hold water. Look, this one's got water. Look, they've all got water. They just hold water in that little middle area. And if you've got mozzies around, they breed in water. So I just don't have them because I don't want to breed mosquitoes. I would rather be in a room full of fungus gnats versus a room full of mosquitoes any day. Oh, it's the worst thing. Oh, don't even want to think about it. And I also have, from what I have read and researched and seen, they are a one and done plant. If the plant flowers, the main plant dies off and then you have to start again almost. So you can have this one period of time where the bromeliad is ugly and then it's beautiful and then it's ugly. The only thing I do like about a bromeliad is some of them have these gorgeous, vibrant colours in the middle of them, and the flowers can be really vibrant as well. They're picky about light, too little, it struggles too much. You can scorch it, especially if outside, and they do need a constant balance of the right watering schedule. I mean, pick a struggle. Which one do you want? Bromeliads are hard. So instead of a bromeliad, and as you can see, we're inside for this one, but I would say go for a happy plant because they're happy. The Dracaena fragrans, you can get a few different Dracaena ones. There's this big one here, but the happy plant is the one I think is the best alternative because it's the easiest. It's very low maintenance. Mine, I hardly touch. It thrives on neglect. It doesn't need constant attention. It does need a good amount of light, but it can handle lower light. I have mine outside and it gets 5 hours of direct sun in the afternoon, but I have gradually acclimated it to being in that spot. So just move it every couple of months. It's also meant to be an air purifying plant. It filters toxins, supposedly. I personally think all plants do that, but supposedly this one does it very well. And they're drought tolerant. They can go for weeks without water. Just don't give it too much water. It is a little bit more like a succulent than anything because you don't want to give it root rot. A happy plant, Dracaena fragrans, beautiful plant, easy plant, much better alternative to bromeliads. Okay, ferns. Let's go in the fern department. If we're going to go for ferns, I have spoken about ferns earlier in this series. And it is a beautiful plant, but there are some that are easier than others. Well, there's a couple that are easier. Don't go for a fern that is really delicate, especially if you're starting out. They can be super thirsty. And as I mentioned right at the beginning in my very first video about how to buy a plant like the pros do, when it comes to ferns, they need a lot of water, like lots and lots and lots. It's actually easier to almost sit it in a basin of water to grow it that way. Because the leaves are very thin, it needs to take up more water to keep its structure. So it just needs more. So it's really hard to know how much to water it, and you can easily forget to water it. It doesn't like neglect. In fact, it won't forgive you. Once you neglect it, it will die. I think it'll drop. It's a dramatic plant. So even a Boston fern I find hard, and especially don't give them a lot of light. Give them low light conditions, very shady spots. So they do need a lot of humidity, especially something like a Boston fern like this one here. They love spider mites, or spider mites love Boston ferns. If when it's full and bushy and beautiful like these here, they can be gorgeous. I do love them actually. They look really beautiful. If you're going to buy a fern, go for a bird's nest fern. And the reason why is because it has a thicker leaf and it can hold water a little bit more. So it's not as demanding on the watering needs as the other ferns. Another really good one, which I haven't tried before, is the blue star fern here. Oh, these leaves are quite big. Look at this. The blue star fern, just gorgeous, but I haven't tried that, so I don't really know what it's like, but I've heard it's very easy as well. And again, I would just say it's because it has thicker stems and slightly thicker leaves. So ferns are beautiful, but again, can be really hard. What else have we got? Tradescantias. These are also called wandering Jews. Some people love these plants, and I had one of these plants a long time ago when I first started collecting plants. The reason why I got rid of it, to be honest, is they're not good for pets. If you have pets, they can be quite toxic, so I got rid of it. But the other main reason I don't like them is it can get leggy very fast, and if you don't look after it, the top of the plant just goes bare. So you can get really beautiful leaves still growing at the base, really long like vines coming off the Tradescantia, but the top can be really bare, and I just think that's ugly. I don't like it. So to keep it happy, it needs frequent trimming. It's not a true low light plant. A lot of people say it goes in low light well, but you do need to get at least some bright indirect light on this one, especially because a lot of it's variegated or white or different like pattern leaves. You need higher variegation for pattern leaves. And it can be sensitive to overwatering. It can be overwatered and can lead to root rot, and the leaves can be delicate and they break easy, and if you knock into it you can bend the leaves and break it. It's just, I don't know, I don't really do Tradescantias anymore. They can look great, but you've got to cut them up very frequently. Like I think it's every 3 or every 6 months you need to trim them and start again almost. Otherwise it just looks patchy. What would I get instead? Do you know what? I would probably go for a spider plant. Spider plants to me are like my top 3 plants for complete beginners. They are the easiest thing to look after. They thrive on neglect. They adapt to most conditions. High humidity, lower humidity, higher light, lower light. It's easy to propagate, especially if it starts producing those little pups that come off them. I have one outside at home, and gosh, it needs a propagation. It's got like millions of baby little plants actually. Spiderettes they're called. They are pet friendly. Now they can get a few brown tips here, so just cut them off over time. And they do grow fast, so they can root bound quite easily, so you just need to repot them every now and again. But for me, spider plants are so easy. So yeah, spider plants, just beautiful again. Finally, a Fittonia plant. These are the most dramatic plants I think I've ever come across. They're the biggest little drama queens in the world. Like, they're colourful, you can get them pinks and reds, but I find as soon as you miss a watering day, maybe you have to water every 3 or 4 days, but if you miss an extra day, it'll go from beautifully bright and healthy to dropping like a stick. It's just crazy. And I find that if you look after them, if you give them attention, they don't like it. If you just ignore them completely, Fittonias like them a lot better. So instead of a Fittonia, go for a peperomia. And go for a peperomia that has smooth leaves, like no texture on the leaves, because the textured leaves are a little bit harder peperomias to look after. It can tolerate different type of light conditions. Indirect bright light is best for most plants, and peperomias no exception. And they can stay compact. I think peperomias are one of those smaller plants, unlike many other plants that just grow bigger and bigger. So peperomia are great for small spaces if you live in city conditions.
All right, planty friends. So this now wraps up my final video, my bonus video for the ultimate guide to buying the perfect plant series. Please do make sure you've watched the whole series. If not, again, I'm going to leave a link for you to have a look at that full series. And of course, if you've been following along with the series, now you know how to shop smarter for that perfect plant. So I hope you really do get a lot of value out of all of these videos. But remember, don't stop here. I highly recommend checking out my next video on some outdated plant myths that might even be killing your plants, because it's not just about the plants that you buy, but how you look after them as well, of course. Thank you very much for joining me. Have an amazing week full of leaves, love and laughter as always, and I'll see you in the next video right here. See you later.